City of Brainerd City Council, so if you think you're somewhere else, you are. Administrator Bergman, will you call the roll?
Absolutely. Erickson.
Here.
O'Day.
Here.
Stunek.
Here.
Johnson.
Here.
Pritchett.
Here.
Stingline.
Here.
Bevins.
Here,
And Badot.
Gonna be a shorter meeting.
please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, item number 4 is the approval of the agenda. This will be a roll call vote because we have people online, and we have 3 things we gotta add. One is the train resolution that's in your packet needs to have a substitute for this one, okay? I'm sorry, for this one. Number 2 is we have an addition to Safety and Public Works, which is a resolution, it's kind of starts Exhibit E for grant agreement, right? So that will be item
8 on that.
8 on Safety and Public Works. And the third thing is, we have an open meeting tonight, and we've voted in the past to have closed meetings. So, no public. We got all kinds of public here, and we're very happy you're here, but we have voted in the past to have closed meetings. So, tonight, we need to look for a motion to adopt an amended agenda, including the fixed train resolution, the item 8 on Safety and Public Works, which is the local road improvement program, and to open tonight's meeting to the public. Is there such a
So
motion?
moved. Second.
Do we have a motion by Johnson, a second by Pritchett? Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we have to vote by roll call.
Erickson.
Yes.
O'Day.
Yes.
Stunek.
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Pritchett.
Yes.
Stingline.
Yes.
And Bevins.
Yes, and welcome, everybody. This is the first open meeting we've had in over a year. So, thanks for coming.
Yay.
Item number 5 is the consent calendar. This is a notice to the public that all matters listed are considered routine by the council and will be enacted by one motion. There'll be no separate discussion of these items unless good cause is shown prior to the time the council votes on the motion to be adopted by roll call. Is there a move to adopt the consent calendar?
So moved.
Motion
Second.
by Stunek, second by O'Day. Any discussion? Hearing none? Administrator Bergman, please call the roll.
Erickson.
Yes.
O'Day.
Yes.
Stunek.
Yes.
Johnson.
Yep.
Pritchett.
Yes.
Stingline.
Yes.
And Bevins.
Yes, we are underway. Item 6 is the first of 2 presentations. 6A is Camp Ripley's annual presentation. Please come on up to the microphone over there is yours. I think you can take your mask off during the presentation.
Well, thank you.
Just give it, yeah, I know. Just give it, we're trying, right?
Oh, you're doing a wonderful job, and congratulations on your first open meeting in a year.
Yeah, and
Well,
thank you so much
you know,
for being
and-
here. Give us your name and let's hear.
So
what
I'm
you
Brigadier
got.
General Lowell Cruz. I'm the Camp Ripley Senior Commander. I work for Major General Sean Mankey as one of his assistant adjutant generals. And with me tonight, I have my Command Sergeant Major, because you know us in the Army, we don't go anywhere without a team. So he's here, and then Sergeant Andrew Wensman is my handler. He, makes sure I get to the right spot at the right time. So it is a annual tradition that the Camp Ripley comes out every spring, and it's one of my favorite events because I get to see local government at its best. And so I get a chance to brief county commissioners and city councils, and I truly enjoy the opportunity to come and talk about one of the greatest installations in the military, and more importantly, one of the great installations in Minnesota, which is the Camp Ripley Training Center. And so with that, I'll start my yearly update. Next slide, please. All right, so like any organization, we boil down our values and what we think is important, and we create a mission statement, and this is mine, okay? My mission is to prepare a facility that helps train our soldiers for our nation's worst day, and train our our National Guardsmen for our state's worst day, and we've had several of them this last year, which I'll go into a little detail on. And more importantly, the third part of my mission is what I'm doing tonight, is to come and be the best neighbor I can, to open ourselves up for criticism or comments or any kind of questions you'll have at the end that you want me to try to answer. I'll do my best to answer that. So next slide, please. So I talked about it earlier. My boss is Major General Sean Mankey. He became the Adjutant General last summer when now Lieutenant General John Jensen went to be the Director of the Army National Guard. So the Army National Guard has a headquarters in Washington, D.C. that is administrative headquarters over 54 states, National Guards. And Lieutenant General John Jensen, a original Iowa guy, but spent most of his time in Minnesota as the head of the Army National Guard in the nation. So that's a pretty good accolade for us. General Mankey is supported by his Command Sergeant Major, which is Brian Soper. And so they're well into their first year of being a command team, and they've gotten to weather COVID, civil unrest, and all sorts of things. So I would tell you that they've been sharpened by fire, and they're doing a great job. Next slide. So bottom line up front, the Minnesota National Guard and the Camp Ripley Training Center continues to be a major economic driver here in central Minnesota. We pride ourselves in the ability of the economic impact we have in your community. I'm proud to say that I have over 100 full-time employees that live in the Brainerd area that drive to Camp Ripley every day to work for me. And so they're part of that payroll number there. So, as we total the total value of everything that we put into the community, about $93 million, which is a pretty good increase over our average number, about $77 million. And that will just show you how busy your National Guard has been this last year. So that increase is increase in payroll. And a lot of that is tied to state active duty days that your soldiers have put in over the last year. And we'll go into that a little bit as we go into future slides. So some of our accomplishments here as we look at 2020, we average about 325,000 DOD man-days and about 65,000 local and state interagency partners that come to Camp Ripley to train for 1 day a year. So if you come to Camp Ripley for 14 days in a row, I'll count you 14 times. That's how that number works. And so as you can see in 2020, we added about 100,000 DOD man-days to our people training at Camp Ripley. But due to COVID, we cut our state and local training days in about half. So a lot of that is tied to the snowplow driver training and of the state patrol academies and that were either less or did not happen with COVID. But our increase in DOD man-days is indicated by the increase in state active duty days that your soldiers have put in to support the state with the COVID response. We average normally about 800 man-days of state active duty in the Minnesota National Guard. This year we're well over 80,000, and so a lot of time spent. We continue to be great stewards of our environment. My environmental team is nationally known as one of the best in the Department of Defense, and they proved that again this year by winning the Natural Resources Conservation Award at the DOD level, as well as being recognized at the NGB level for their environmental stewardship. If you've driven by 371 going south, you saw that we did some railroad improvements this summer. We added a mile worth of railroad siding along the main rail that runs north and south between Camp Ripley and Little Falls. And what that's going to give me is the ability to double the amount of rail that I can push into Camp Ripley at any one time. This is important because we need to be able to move our Armor Brigade combat team very quickly out of the state. And my biggest hurdle inside of that was our ability to move rail cars in and out. It would take me about 10 days to move the whole brigade out of the state with what we had, and with just by adding that mile worth of siding, we've been able to decrease that by 5 days. So it's pretty important for our national readiness. We've also started to work with a lot of our other DOD partners. So those acronyms running there, the 123rd CRG is an Air Force unit, the MDSU is a Naval Diving Unit, and U.S. Coast Guard is a diving unit as well. And so they're coming to Camp Ripley because of the extreme cold weather we find in our winter. The Navy and the Coast Guard are both diving under the ice on our lakes. It's good news stories. The Coast Guard has decided to move their winter diving school to Camp Ripley. They used to go to a resort in Canada for that activity every year, and so with the difficulties of getting across the border with COVID, they've decided maybe they should go back to an American product. So they picked Camp Ripley as that location, and we're pretty proud to work with them. And it shows a trend that we're trying to push here, which is an expansion of winter training for all elements in the Department of Defense. So part of the Department of Defense published a new Arctic strategy this last year. All the services followed, and you're going to see more units coming to Camp Ripley to train in the winter, which just helps me spread that busyness across the whole year, which is a good thing. So on the state support side, we've been very busy in providing logistical support for all the civil disturbance last May and June. We spent the summer doing COVID testing and vaccination missions, as well as this fall supporting long-term healthcare facilities. So what's that equate to? About 6,500 activated soldiers last spring for the height of the civil unrest. About 80,000 state active duty man days over the year and so we just finished very publicized Operation Safety Net in the Twin Cities. We spent about 4 or 5 months planning that with the law enforcement agencies in the Minneapolis area, understanding that we didn't want a repeat of what happened last May and June, that we wanted to be ready. And all in all, we think it was successful in helping keep some form of peace in Minneapolis. So, meanwhile, we continue to support the war fight nationally. We sent 800 soldiers to Africa as part of the 2 of the 135. They're out of Mankato. They spent a year in Djibouti, helping be the quick reaction force for the military in Africa, and the last elements of that just returned to the States here this month. So pretty good. There's always a lot of joy when soldiers return from a deployment and once again there. And then we're very proud of the fact that this last summer we were able to help the 1st Armored Brigade go to the National Training Center in Fort Irwin, California at the height of COVID. They were the first Army unit to do a large exercise and prove that it could be done and that we could put that unit in a bubble and protect them from COVID. And they were very successful last July of going through the National Training Center in Fort Irwin. And we rail loaded all those soldiers in and out of Ripley. And more importantly, we brought them all through there and COVID tested them before they left. And then we helped COVID test them on the back end as well. So next slide, please. So just some of the highlights of some of the work we've done this last year. In 2020, as I alluded to in May and June, we helped push 3 battalions that were training at Camp Ripley into the Minneapolis area in about a 12-hour notice. So those units were preparing to go to California for the National Training Center. They had connexes loaded full of equipment. Their vehicles were staged to get on rail cars, and they had to pull all that stuff out in about 12 hours and get to Minneapolis to help with the response to the riots associated with George Floyd's death. And so from then on, Camp Ripley really did what we do our best, which is we are a logistical hub for the Minnesota National Guard. So we provided meals and cots and other repair pieces to keep the Minnesota National Guard functioning. In all, we mobilized about 6,500 soldiers last May and June. Next slide. Throughout the whole summer, we've had soldiers doing COVID testing. So you go through the list there. We almost had 200 soldiers involved almost all year long doing community-based testing. So they would move from site to site and open up community-based testing clinics. About 300 soldiers went and supported long-term health care facilities at 21 different sites. Majority of that was this fall in September through November. We took mechanics and trained them on how to help take care of our elderly and in healthcare facilities, and they did a great job. And once again, you think sometimes that isn't what soldiers signed up for, but they really get a lot of self-worth in helping their Minnesotans out with that as well. This spring, we've been supporting vaccination clinics, about 400 soldiers and all over the state in different vaccination clinics. I've had soldiers supporting an isolation support facility on Camp Ripley. What that means is all those responders above are all exposed to COVID at times. And so we had a facility designed just so that they could isolate from their families and not spread COVID if they did become positive. And on the bottom there, we've pushed almost $8 million worth of PPE and about $10 million of medical supplies either to the state or other state National Guards across the nation in the last year. Next slide. And obviously, I alluded to it a little bit here. We were very active in supporting Operation Safety Net this last month. And all those soldiers came through Camp Ripley in what we call RSOI, which means that they come, we get them enrolled as members of the state active duty on National Guard. We make sure they've got all their equipment we need, and then we push them forward to the Twin Cities to various sites. And they provided static security predominantly throughout the last couple of weeks. So next slide, please. So I made the team include this slide because not often I get asked, how does the National Guard get involved in a response in your community? And for communities other than St. Paul and Minneapolis and Duluth, it really starts with your local county sheriff. Your community has some form of emergency. On the left, there are things that we normally see: wildfires, floods, tornadoes, winter storm response. That results in a request through the sheriff for an emergency declaration that goes up to HSEM. They do an executive order that the governor signs, and then your guard will come into your community and help you. And we predominantly like to do the things on the right-hand side there, which is helping things, you know, traffic control, evacuation, search and rescue, disaster relief. And so that's truly the heart of the mission that we train for when we're supporting Minnesota on its worst day. So next slide. So on camp, if you come, we continue to expand and replace and modernize. And so in 2020, we added the buildings you see on the right there. The first one there is we continue to replace our row upon row of 10 huts with new CMU style barracks. And the beauty is they're heated and cooled, so pretty good improvement over the 10 huts that our soldiers used to live in Camp Ripley. We the picture on the lower left there is we completed a vehicle storage fire hall for our fire department. We have one of the few full-time fire departments north of Minneapolis, and so inside of that I've got 17 full-time firefighters that work for me, and they work for you as well because we've got great memorandum of agreements with the local area. So they have a portion of Morrison County's response area up 371 towards Fort Ripley. And we're able through that agreement to flex them out and help our community as well. And the final point there is we continue to upgrade our electrical system on the base. 3-4 years ago, we put in a 65-acre solar field as a partnership with Minnesota Power, and now we've added generators to all our substations, and the last step now is to add the SCADA system that will help us balance that generation load between the solar field and the generators, so that if we have to, we can come off the grid and Camp Ripley be completely self-sufficient. Next slide. Some of the construction you'll see in 2021, we're starting to see it right now. The picture there is of Nelson Hall. I'm pretty proud of that. It's one of the historic buildings on base, one of the oldest buildings. We're going to renovate the interior of it, and it will now become the new post headquarters, which it was for about 50 years before we moved out, and we're going to move back in after the remodel. The second item there, the Joint Emergency Response Training Center, comes with from some bonding money about 4 years ago when we were worried about rail cars dumping oil all over the environment. And so we're creating a training center inside of our Emergency Vehicle Operations Center that'll allow first responders to train on rail car derailments and natural gas pipeline heads and things like that they could find that they could respond to that would prevent an environmental disaster. We continue to add other buildings. We're adding some motor vehicle storage sheds in our maintenance footprint. some headquarters buildings, and we're adding an addition or another building next to my fire hall. This building will be the admin and the lodging for my full-time firefighters, so that hopefully we're done building for our firefighters at that point. So we'll see. Next slide. And then finally, if you're not tracking the legislature this summer, we're pretty proud, passed $13 million in their bonding bill for a new Minnesota military museum. It's going to be located there in that orange strip of land to the east of the State Veterans Cemetery. And the picture on the right is a rendition of what it could look like, but we're starting the design process of that this year. It'll take us 3-4 years to help the museum build that. The museum's a 501c that's been occupying buildings on Camp Ripley. So from the installation point of view, we're excited that they're going to have a facility outside of base. It's going to give them some great access. Our part of that piece is we're going to add our visitor registration and our military ID card station into that facility, as well as our recruiters. So it should simplify access for our veteran population. They'll be able to quickly pull off the 371 and find some help there without having to search all over Camp Ripley of where that's at. So we think that's a positive thing. Next slide. So we look ahead to the summer. This is quarter 3. April, May, and June. We're right in the middle of May right now. You can see that we'll get pretty busy here in May with about 38,000 man days of military training. We have a lot of units that got to catch up in some training here with all the activity we had with Operation Safety Net. The blue line on top is our civilian population. You can see it's fairly consistent throughout the summer and around 1,400 man days. Some of the highlights, we just did the DAV turkey hunt this last week. We're going to allow some soldiers to kill some turkeys this week. We had 35 disabled hunters last week, and I think they took 17 turkeys. So that's a pretty good success rate for those gentlemen and ladies. The State Patrol's running their academy right now. This year they're going to run 2 academies to try to catch up a little bit on their manpower. And about a month ago, we held the best warrior competition on a really cold and wet weekend. And we identified the best NCO and the best soldier in the Minnesota National Guard, and they'll go forward to train at a national level here and compete nationally next. Next slide, please. Fourth quarter is July, August, and September. You can see that August is our biggest month for military training inside of that. It's also going to be our noisiest month. We've got 3 artillery units that are going to come and train in August, so you'll hear a lot of artillery firing. The MnDOT snowplow training is coming back in September, so you'll see our civilian customers in September almost equal to our military. And we're pretty excited that, just like your open meeting, that we're able to host our youth camp for our kids this summer. And we plan on building little pods of isolated kids and at least getting them a chance to have that experience that they missed last year. Next slide, please. I've talked about it before. I have some great partners that live and work on Camp Ripley. The DNR has their conservation officer headquarters and academy on the installation, the State Patrol as well. HSCM works out of there as they train for emergency managers. And then the MnDOT is there every fall with their snowplow driver training. So those agencies all live on Camp Ripley and have offices predominantly in our emergency management training center. Next slide, please. Then some of the community outreach we're proud of and that we are going to plan for this coming year. We are going to host an open house in September. So we'd ask that you come I believe the second weekend in September and enjoy seeing Camp Ripley and the changes we've made on a Sunday afternoon. We are highlighting the contribution of our Native American veterans at that ceremony. So we're working with the Mille Lacs Ojibwe tribe to provide us some veterans that we can highlight inside of that. As we work through the rest of the year, we're pretty proud of our support to food drives, Christmas gift tags in the Morrison County area. This last year we dumped almost 1,500 pounds of food in the Little Falls food shelf as donations from the soldiers. And then on the bottom, our public outreach with our disabled American veteran hunting, fishing programs as well are all online and all working really well. We're going to host Trolling for the Troops here the first weekend in June. And we continue to get back to normal, and that's a great thing. So next slide. And I talked about a little bit earlier, you can see my environmental team continues to be a national competitor. There it just is #1 all the way around. They continually compete at a high level, and it's really, at the heart of that is because our programs are so well developed compared to the other agencies that we compete against. Our flora and fauna and our conservation programs on Camp Ripley give us a lot to work with, and protecting 18 miles of pristine Mississippi coastline or shoreline is pretty important, as well as all the different other wildlife elements on base. Next slide, please. I want to remind everybody with this slide that we have a tremendous amount of environmental oversight, and because my team does such a good job competing nationally, I have no worries that every time one of these agencies come to Camp Ripley to check on us, that we're going to survive their inspection and do well. And that continues to be a trend that I'm pretty proud of as well. Next slide. So my environmental team couldn't do that award-winning work without a lot of help from other agencies. So the DNR is pretty important on Camp Ripley. Bowser is very important in helping us support our ACUB program. I have some great internships with Central Lakes College and St. Cloud State. And every May and June, it's fun to see all those students come and show up at Ripley, and that they're going to spend the summer doing whatever research we've asked them to do. And then the other agencies there, the Nature Conservatory is the other primary partner inside the ACUB administration, is pretty important to us. Next slide, please. We're in the middle of our burning season, so I checked today, with today's burn, we'll have about 2,000 acres left of the 14,000 hazard reduction burns. We still haven't started any of the mission enhancement burns, but this year we scheduled once again to burn about 15,000 acres at Camp Ripley. The hazard reduction is all the yellow stuff, and that's stuff that we shoot munitions into, and so we want to prevent fires there, and especially in the summer when our units are training, because that's a distractor. So we burn those areas off in the spring, which hopefully allows us then to not deal with that in the middle of the summer. Next slide, please. And finally, I always want to highlight the community involvement in our efforts to support encroachment around Camp Ripley. Our program for that is the ACUB program, the Army Compatible Use Buffer program. You can see in 21 that we are scheduled to put almost $3 million into that program again between federal and state funding. That's a pretty average year for us. 2 years ago we had a lot more money in that, but this year pretty average. Obviously we use that money to purchase lifetime easements on farmland and other properties around camp to keep it in whatever production state it's currently at. And so, and then the Sentinel landscape is an offshoot of that. And one of the cool things inside of the Sentinel landscape is the Natural Resources Conservation Service is putting a forester headquartered in my environmental office on Camp Ripley, but he's not going to work on Camp Ripley. His job is to go out in the community around camp and help farmers and landowners understand how they can build fire prevention programs around base, so that we can decrease the chance of a fire coming into Camp Ripley as much as we do on trying to fight them from leaving. So next slide. With that, ladies and gentlemen, that's the end of what I wanted to share today, but obviously I open myself up to any questions you want to throw at me. Thank you.
Any questions? Gabe Johnson.
Thank you. I have 2 questions and a comment. I'll start with the comment. And this last year, what you guys have done with civil unrest in Minneapolis and the COVID response and the vaccine and everything, absolutely amazing. I don't know where the state would be without a great organization like yours. But
Well,
2 questions. One is, congratulations on the Cultural Resource Conservation Award from ARNG. But I noticed in 2017, 18, and 19, you also won that award from the DOD. Yep. And the Army. What other installation in this country is competing with yours?
Yeah, well, at the DOD level, which if you look at that slide in your packet, we've won pretty consistently at the DOD level year upon year. That is every installation in the Department of Defense, Army, Air Force.
Who beat you in 2020?
I don't know who beat me in 2020, but they're not as good as ours. We just messed up.
We'll be back in 2021.
Oh, yes, sir. So-
Okay, and then finally, the mayor couldn't be here tonight, but he did want me to ask you, when is the council getting their tank rides?
As soon as the council enlists in the Minnesota National Guard, I'll make you part of what a historic 194 Armor Battalion headquartered here in Brainerd, which we're renovating our armory right now. That'll be done here in another 6 months or so, and your soldiers will have a modern armory again. That's pretty cool. And that's the best way for you to get a tank ride right there. So,
Good answer, and thank you.
all right, thank you very much for your time.
Sign up, we got a couple minutes.
Maybe we can put a snowplow in the front of a tank.
Yeah.
Or we could name a tank.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Comments?
If I could share a good news story today.
You can.
Today I went over to Osakis, and they have a high school class of 67 students in their senior class, and we highlighted 7 of them that enlisted in the Minnesota National Guard this year to serve. And so I would say, you know, the spirit of your National Guard is healthy. And so I'm pretty proud to be part of this organization. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And you guys are welcome to stay for the next 4 hours while we go through the library presentation, or you can go, but thank you again for coming. All right, Mary Cope, you're up next. You can take your mask off for the presentation.
Thank you,
You've got a microphone. Let us know what you got.
Thank you, Kelly. I'm here tonight representing the Brainerd Library Board, and on a subject that we've given extensive thought and action, finally some action to. I want to thank the council for the good liaison we have with Dave Pritchett, who is always very helpful to us. But to back up a little bit to begin this, about a year and a half ago, the auditor, a company from Pequot Lakes, who audits the Kichigami Library Board, came to the board following the audit and said that your fund balance is far, far greater than you need. It is excessive. He said, it's not my job as the auditor to tell you what to do, but I believe since this is all money that comes from your taxpayers, that it would behoove the Kichigami Board to review it and perhaps take whatever steps are necessary. What happened immediately was, as I think most of you know, is that the Kichigami Board voted unanimously to reduce the levies to the units of government that belong to the Kichi system for the year, for taxes payable 2021. And for Brainerd, that amounted to $10,000 reduction in the actual levy against the city, that $10,000 being made up from the fund balance. We then asked our director at Kichigami to review the actual to budget, because the question really was in many of our minds, where did this excess come from? Who paid it? The 2 largest units in the Kichigami system are the city of Brainerd, for cities, the city of Brainerd and the city of Bemidji. The director went back 7 years on the personnel expenses only, because those are the greatest amount in our budget that come from local units of government. And the result was that Brainerd, in the past 7 years, had paid in excess of $316,000 plus that were then added, of course, to that huge fund balance. So after lengthy discussions by the Kichi Board, there was a unanimous motion that the units of government representatives should go back to their library and to their unit of government and find out what these people thought should be done with that excess. And so I took it first back to our library board. We have in Brainerd, I believe, a very good library board. Most of the time, everyone is there and they take an active role in the discussion. And so they're very hands-on. And I thought it was only fair to go back to them and find out what they thought we should recommend for that excess. Dave Pritchett also advised us that he felt the council would want to know what the Brainerd board thinks should be done with that $316,000. Now, before I go into the detail on that, I want to be sure there's no misunderstanding. The final resolution of that money rests in the hands of the Kichigami board. The Kichigami board, because the money is there, a Kichigami board could say, regardless of what any of us want, Brainerd, Bemidji, Wadena, whoever, they could say the money's here and we're keeping it here and we're going to spend it as we see fit. I don't think that's likely to happen. Since the motions have been unanimous to go back to the units of government and find out what they think, we proceeded along those lines. We had two regular library board meetings at which we discussed this thoroughly, and we had one special finance committee meeting at which we discussed it to come to a recommendation to the library board. And so what we came up with is what I'm presenting to you tonight, with the hope that you will endorse it and recommend that back. I will then report that back to the Kichigami board. Presumably, other units of government will have an opportunity to go to their councils and county boards and find out what they think. So hopefully by the May or June, July at the latest meeting, we will know where we're at as a region. Perhaps I should point out that Crow Wing County, as each county has a separate levy, separate from the cities. Crow Wing County was not eligible for any payback on this money because Crow Wing County forever, as long as I know at least, has kept their levy at a minimum. And if the levy from a unit of government to Kichigami was at the minimum, which the state sets the minimum, then they were not eligible because they didn't pay any extra. They just paid what they had to pay. Brainerd is considerably over the minimum, as are most of the cities and frankly, most of the counties. And so those are all eligible for some payback. But what came out of our library board, and I think you have it in front of you as a motion or resolution, was that of the $316,000, $210,000 of that money would go into or be credited toward the Brainerd Public Library Capital Fund. And that, of course, is for building and heavy types of maintenance. Every year when we do our budget, we put some money in there, but it's a small budget. I think we've done very well with what we have. For your information, we've put in new HVAC system in the library. We've done necessary work on our boilers. A few years ago, we had a lot of roof repair. I think it's been a very responsible board. And they do watch every penny, as Dave will tell you. But I believe that our goal is to provide the best, very best possible for the taxpayers of Brainerd. Now, this money came from the taxpayers of Brainerd, and I frankly am I am convinced that this money should somehow go back to benefit them. $316,000, in my opinion, would represent as much money as many people make in 6 or 7 years. So it's not to be sneezed at. Sometimes in government we think, oh, that's not much, but it's a lot. And every penny of this came from the taxpayers in Brainerd. So again, the recommendation was that $210,000 would be credited to the capital fund of the Brainerd Library. And as I've pointed out, and I know Dave will agree, we're not going to throw it away. We are very prudent. We discuss things. Right now, one of our members made a suggestion that any future repair on our roof we should look at solar panels. We should at least talk about it. And so we're going to do that. We're going to have some people come in who know a little bit about it. We're going to discuss it. We're going to talk about the pros and cons and the costs and the long-term payback. But it's one thing that's on our radar, just to give you an idea of what we're doing. We're also suggesting that 1 year's levy for the Kichigami Library would be held in abeyance, and this money, this additional money, would be used for that. That would be the amount of between $80,000 and $90,000. And again, Alderman Pritchett pointed out that if that goes through, it should be emphasized it's 1 year only. We don't know what's going to happen next year. If the fund balance continues to grow, it may continue on for another year. But that would be very important. And then unanimously, the Brainerd Board agreed that the remaining amount of money should go or be left with Kichigami. And if they want to make some personnel adjustments, whatever, that our hope would be that it would be used for that purpose. But once it goes back to the Kichigami Board decides how it will be used. So that's the motion that we passed there, and that's what we're asking the council to validate for us, so that I have something to take back to the Kichigami Board from the Brainerd City Council. Just a little additional information for you. The balance on hand in Kichigami as of, it would have been toward the end of March, was $7,153,000 balance on hand. Average monthly expenditures between $240,000 and $260,000. The board, Kichigami Board, unanimously voted that our fund balance at Kichigami should be held at about 65% of our annual needs, because Kichigami, like anybody else, gets our tax settlements in the end of May or June, and then again in December. So we need that much money to tide us over. So with 65% left there, we figured that at about $1.9 million. And that's be, as I say, about 65% of our annual need. And we have committed funds of $1,453,000, and by that I mean those are funds that were committed for specific purposes that we can't take out for anything else. We also have CDs in the amount of $451,002. We usually try to use those for special programs that come up that have not been included in a regular budget. So what I'm trying to point out is that Kichigami has a lot of money. When it comes to budget time this year, I would not be surprised if the auditor again tells us that it would be very prudent to reduce again those funds. And what that would mean, I don't know. Maybe another savings to the cities. We'll have to wait until that actually happens. But the purpose of tonight's meeting is to fill you in on that. I do want to give a shout out to the Brainerd Library Board. It is one of the best boards that I have ever worked with. They are hands-on. I brag about them at Kichigami all the time. Dave, I'm sure, will tell you that. We have a good discussion on issues. We don't rubber stamp things. And so I hope you are comfortable in what I'm telling you. And so if you have any questions, I'll try to answer them. But that's really the purpose of my being here tonight.
That's it?
Thank you.
Okay, before I open it up for questions, can you just, because we've got people watching on WebEx.
Of course.
Can you state your name and your position on the library
I'm
board
so
and
sorry.
address?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My name is Mary Cope, and I live at 123 Laurel Street. And I represent the city of Brainerd as a on the Brainerd Library Board. I'm one of the Brainerd Library Board members, and I represent the Brainerd Library Board and the city of Brainerd on the Kitchigami Library Board. Every unit of government has one representative on the Kitchi Board, and that's me right now.
Appreciate that for those who just don't know, you know.
Sure, I understand.
Who's the chairman of the library board in Brainerd?
In Brainerd,
Yep,
Linda Hummel.
okay.
Yeah, we rotate, we have a policy, we put it in our bylaws that we will rotate our chairmanship on I believe it's every 2 years. So we do that, and there's no hard feelings that way then. And everybody gets a chance at either the fun or the misery, whatever the case may be.
Excellent. So I'm gonna turn it over to you eventually, so you can guide us through this, but if there's questions, now's the time. Gabe?
I just have one question, Mr. Chair, and what is Kitchigami asking? Are they asking what the Brainerd Library Board thinks of this $316,000? Or are they asking what the Brainerd City Council thinks of what should be done with this $316,000? Because I believe that question may have two different answers.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The motion by the Kitchigami Library Board that passed unanimously was for the members of the Kitchigami Board, all of whom are city council or represent a library board or a county, that they would go back to the unit of government they represent, and they would present this information and ask that unit of government for their opinion. So that came from the unanimous vote of the Kitchigami Board. So hopefully every member of the Kitchi Board is doing that.
And that unit of government, in your case, is the city of Brainerd?
Is the city of Brainerd.
Okay.
I did go back to our library board first because it's such a good board, and they have been, every step of the way, kept up to date on things. I give a regular report from Kitchigami. And Alderman Pritchett suggested that the Brainerd Council would be very interested in knowing what recommendation came from the library board.
Anything else, Gabe?
That was my question.
Thank you.
Any other questions of Mary Cope? Okay, we have a library liaison. We have a request. I know it's on our agenda as a presentation, no action needed. I talked to Mrs. Cope about this yesterday. But you, Mr. Pritchett, are our liaison. What should we do?
I think the request here is they want to hear what we want.
Yes.
And so looking at the library request, it's basically a suggestion. Because as everybody knows, the decision's going to be made by the Kitchi Board. It has to be approved by the State Library Board, I believe. Or does it, Mary? I'm not sure.
No, it doesn't,
Okay.
not the state. Kitchigami has total control over this specific.
So what we're doing is they want recommended courses of action from those units of government. So I would recommend that we just basically endorse the motion coming out of the library board.
Perfect. We have a motion. Is there a second? I have a motion. Is there a second? We have a motion. Oh, Chairman O'Day.
Time to comment?
need a
No,
second.
we really need a second
Okay.
first, because we don't have a motion. And I'm gonna ask the third time, and then
Second.
this, all right, thank you. Perfect, we've got a motion by Dave Pritchett and a second by Chairman Mike O'Day of Safety and Public Works. Now you can comment on the motion. You're up.
I'm motioning that we move forward, but with consideration, I'd like to push it. Because I think in order to go through the proper channels, it should go through a committee with P&F to find out if there's anything else that we might want to detail in that recommendation. It's a lot of money. And maybe we just do end up going with that, but I think in order to get it through the proper channels, we push it out 2 weeks, give it to P&F, and then come back with your final in 2 weeks.
Okay, it kind of sounds like you spoke against the motion, because that's
Correct.
not part of the motion, right?
Correct.
Okay, well, I appreciate you seconding for the point of discussion. Okay, all right, so We got a motion, we've got a second, we've got some discussion. Anybody else have a comment on the motion? Chairman Johnson.
Yeah, I have a comment on the motion, and I agree with O'Day. I think we should push this off 2 weeks. I would like to get input from Connie, from Jennifer. I'd like to get input on how we could structure this in our budget going forward. If we go 1 year with a $90,000 reduction, but then the following year back up $90,000. So I think we push this to P&F in 2 weeks with the library's recommendation. On its face, it looks like a good recommendation, and it's probably what we should do, but we should probably give city staff time and city council time to review this recommendation and then discuss it, as opposed to just voting on it as it's dropped on our laps.
Okay. I'm gonna just hold discussion for a second. Is there a timeliness to this, Mrs. Cope?
The Kichigami board will meet on the 20th. And it would be nice if I would at least have something that I could indicate, if you could even do a provisional approval, subject to further review by personnel and finance. Something like that would be perfectly agreeable with me. But I should have something to go back with on the 20th.
I hear what you're saying.
If it's possible.
Jennifer Bergman, when is our next council meeting?
Your next council meeting is on May 17th.
Oh, that's
3
before the
days
20th.
before.
So that would work, wouldn't it?
Yeah, that should work.
Okay, Dave, I'm gonna circle back around to see if you want to amend your motion, but just as a general comment, Tiffany Singleton.
Actually, I want to make the motion that I think that both Alderman O'Day and
Can't make
Johnson.
another motion.
We have a motion.
We have a motion and a second. Now we're gonna give it back to Dave Pritchett to see if he and the seconder want a friendly amendment. Any comments on the motion? Hearing none, before we vote on the motion, Mr. Pritchett, you've heard some comment, you know the timing of things. Anything you want to clarify in your motion that you accidentally left out?
I think the points that were brought up are very valid. I would actually like to amend the motion to send it to P&F for review and approval to come back to the council on the 17th.
Okay.
It's good.
Mr. O'Day, you seconded it, so he's clarifying. I don't want to say amending, so we have to vote on anything. He just clarified his motion. Do you agree with that clarification?
I do.
Okay. So the motion's been clarified I believe, to support the motion pending a trip through PNF on the 17th. Is that correct? Any further discussion? Hearing none, we're going to vote by roll call. Administrator Bergman.
Erickson.
Yes.
O'Day.
Yes.
Stunek.
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Pritchett.
Yes.
Stingline.
Yes.
And Bevins.
Yes, so that motion is passed. So you'll get a confirmation on the 17th, but you have a support now.
Okay, and I perhaps should be at your meeting. What time will it be?
You are invited. It will be, we'll know on the Wednesday prior to the 17th, and I'll reach out to you and let you know what
That
time.
would be good, Gabe.
And we'll
Thank
put you on first
Sure,
on the agenda, and I'll let you know what time it is.
sure. Okay, thank you very
Okay,
much.
thank you, Mr. Cope. All right, next up is item 7, Council Committee Report. 7A is Personal and Finance Committee Chairman Gabe Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We have 8 items on the agenda, and we got through them all without the fearless leadership of Connie Hillman, who is in Florida this week.
Trying to get my
It is the first flight she has taken in 20 years, and the first flight her husband has taken in his entire life.
Wow.
That's what happens when you're a farmer.
Yeah, nobody goes to Florida this time of year.
So we have 8 items. The first one is the request from Brainerd Community Action for 4th of July fireworks donation. The Executive Director of Community Action, David Badeau, did attend via phone our committee meeting. And Alderman Stunek spoke about the motion too, that they want $8,000 for fireworks like we have done in years past, and the motion to is approve the request.
Motion by Gabe Johnson,
Second.
second by Chief Stunek. Any discussion?
I've got one.
Yep, please.
Just a note, Mr. Chair, that I did ask if they were doing fireworks or if they were doing a parade or what's happening for the 4th of July. And they are doing fireworks just like last year, set off from the same location as last year. They are working on some parade adjacent events or parade like events, but they don't quite have it figured out yet, so they're not ready for an announcement. But there will be some sort of a community celebration, most likely on the 4th of July.
Wow, excellent news. All right, we have a motion, we have a second. Administrator Bergman, please call the roll.
Erickson.
Yes.
O'Day.
Yes.
Stunek.
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Pritchett.
Yes.
Stingline.
Yes.
And Bevins.
Yes, please proceed.
All right, the next item is the approval of a memorandum of agreement with Ibew BPU Union for hiring a wastewater intern/operator. And the motion is to approve the attached memorandum of agreement between the City of Brainerd and Ibew Local Number 31 BPU Union, which details Eric Klein's progression as our 2021 wastewater intern to a full-time wastewater operator, and I so move.
Second.
Motion by Johnson, second by Stingline. Any discussion? Chairman Johnson?
This MOU was already approved by the BPU board, and Mr. Eric Klein served as an intern in the wastewater plant this past year, and they wanted him to come back and offered him a job as a full-time wastewater operator, and as soon as he finishes school this year, he will do just that.
Excellent. Any further comments? Hearing none, Mr. Bergman, please call the roll.
Erickson.
Yes.
O'Day.
Yes.
Stunek.
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Pritchett.
Yes.
Stingline.
Yes.
And Bevins.
Yes, that motion is approved. Please proceed.
Thank you. The third item is to authorize Street Maintenance 2 promotional process, and the motion is to authorize staff to begin Street Maintenance 2 promotional process, and I so move.
Motion by Johnson,
Second.
second by Stunek. Any discussion? No? Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, it's a budgeted position. Last year, we hired 3 maintenance 1 with the intention one of them would end up being promoted to a maintenance 2, and we're just going to start that process now.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Mr. Bergman, please call the roll.
Erickson.
Yes.
O'Day.
Yes.
Stunek.
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Pritchett.
Yes.
Stingline.
Yes.
And Bevins.
Yes, that motion carries. Please proceed.
The next motion is to authorize hiring a police intern, and the motion is to hire Nick Karsnia as police department intern effective May 10th, 2021 at $12 per hour, subject to successfully completing a pre-employment background check, and I so move.
Motion by Johnson. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Stingline. Any discussion? Chairman Johnson?
So this will be partially refunded by Sourcewell. He'll be paying $12 an hour. And the difference between an intern and a CSO to benefit our police department is an intern can work up to 40 hours a week, where the other CSO positions are just part-time temporary employees, so they can't work more than 20. So we'll be able to get a really good look at Nick as he's working up to 40 hours a week for the police department.
Excellent. Any other discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Erickson.
Yeah.
O'Day.
Yes.
Yes.
Stunek.
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Pritchett.
Yes.
Stingline.
Yes.
And Bevins.
Yes, that motion passes. Please proceed.
Okay, next item number 5 is the update of the police chief eligibility list. We have 2 motions. The Civil Service Commission opened up applications for a police chief. That ended last Thursday. We had 1 application. They met just today. They interviewed that 1 applicant. And the first motion here is staff recommends to authorize a conditional job offer to Mike Bestel for our police chief position, subject to these 6 points that are in front of you. I'll keep the motion short and I'll read the 6 points in discussion. And I so move.
Second.
I have a motion by Chairman Johnson, second by Stunek. Please, any discussion?
Yep. So the 6 points that are contingencies for Mike Bestel to be our police chief is 1, to successfully completion of a pre-employment background check. 2, will be placed on step 4 of the police chief wage grid, which is $51.72 per hour. 3, he receives department head benefit adjustments as noted in the employee policy manual. Examples, the increased life insurance policy and vacation accrual. 4, he has to serve a 90-day trial period as noted in the employee policy manual. 5, the wage and benefit changes will be effective upon acceptance of this offer and successful completion of item 1. And 6, Bestel will advance to step 5 on January 1st, 2022, per the employee policy manual. Those are the 6 points, and I just want to say that I'm really excited that we were able to make this job offer tonight, and this is probably a best-case scenario that could have worked out from the starting point. When Police Chief McQuiston announced his retirement, it is really great that we can go with an internal hire.
Me too. Chief Stunek, any comments?
Me too.
Yeah, me too. All right, any further discussion?
Congratulations.
It's just motion one.
I have a feeling.
All right, hearing no further discussion. City Administrator Bergman, please call the roll.
Erickson,
Yes.
O'Day.
Yes.
Stunek.
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Pritchett.
Yes.
Stingline.
Yes.
And Bevins.
Yes, that motion passes. Let's try for another one.
All right, so we have a police chief contingent on background checks, but he runs the background checks now, so that should pass. Motion 2 is I move to authorize the funding as needed for the Civil Service Commission to update the deputy police chief eligibility list, and I so move.
Second.
We have a motion by Johnson, a second by Stingline. Comments on this?
Yeah, just the funding is as needed because that fund is going to have ample money available due to us not having a full roster of police, not having a police chief for, there's plenty of money there to do the hiring process.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Mr. Bergman, please call the roll.
Erickson,
Yes.
O'Day.
Yes.
Stunek.
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Pritchett.
Yes.
Stingline.
Yes.
And Bevins.
Yes, that motion passes. Please proceed.
The next one is the disposal of surplus equipment, and the motion is to authorize staff to offer 8 used Microsoft Surfaces for sale on the public surplus auction website, and I so move.
Second.
We have a motion by Johnson, second by Stunek. Any further discussion? Come on. Come on.
Okay, I got something. We are going to put them on the public surplus auction site as soon as Sean has the time to do it within the next few days, and we are listing each of the 8 individual surfaces individually. So if you are interested as a council member who had one, you can get on and bid with the public. And if you're a member of the public, you have the opportunity to own a computer that was previously owned by Dave Pritchett.
There you go. But it didn't have a great battery.
The mayor's
I was
feelings.
just gonna say,
Did Dave
mine had
sign
a
his?
7-minute battery life.
Are they autographed?
I don't know.
You just have to look for hairs.
All right, hearing no meaningful discussion, please call the roll.
Erickson,
Yes.
O'Day.
Yes.
Stunek.
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Pritchett.
Yes.
Stingline.
Yes.
And Bevins.
Yes, and that motion passes. Please proceed.
The next one is the authorization to purchase hanging baskets for downtown, and the motion is to authorize staff to contract with Copper Creek for hanging flower baskets at a cost not to exceed $2,900 per their quote, and to purchase and plant flowers in downtown urns at a cost not to exceed $2,500, including labor, and I so move.
Motion by Johnson,
Second.
second by Stangline. Any discussion? Yes, Chairman Johnson.
These costs are assessed to the downtown special taxing district. The Copper Creek is who we used last year. It's a little bit cheaper this year, but that's because of COVID, we can't find 24-inch baskets. We're going with 18-inch baskets this year, so a little bit of a cost savings. And we're going to plant the flowers in the urns using staff time because our amazing assistant city planner is also a landscape architect. So he's going to go down there and plant all the flowers in the urns, and they are going to look great. Best hire we've ever had.
They aren't planted yet.
There's gotta be more discussion. That can't be it. Okay, hearing none. Administrator, we have a motion, we have a second. Administrator Bergman, please call the roll.
Erickson. Erickson.
Tab?
That's a yes.
O'Day.
Yes.
Stunek.
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Pritchett.
Yes.
Stingline.
Yes.
And Bevins.
Yes, that motion passes. Please proceed.
This one I will not offer discussion. It is the annual delegation to perform electronic transfers, and the motion is to delegate the finance director or their designee to make electronic transfers as deemed necessary by the finance director to conduct city business for the calendar year 2021, and I so move.
Motion by Johnson, second by Stunek. Hearing no discussion, please call the roll.
Erickson.
Yes.
O'Day.
Yes.
Stunek.
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Pritchett.
Yes.
Stingline.
Yes.
And Bevins.
Yes, that motion passes. Mr. Chair?
End of report.
Oh, thank you very much. Mr. Chair?
Yes, SPW tonight had 7 items with an additional for a total of 8 items. First item was the request for an event, street closure by the Destination Downtown Business Coalition for the Here for Good Market. The motion coming out of committee was to approve the application with the proposed conditions presented on a 2-week trial basis, June 8th and 15th. That's the motion.
Second.
We have a motion by O'Day, second by Pritchett. My question is, one of the conditions, they have to let the businesses know?
Yes, and this was actually the majority of time taken in our meeting today. So one of the conditions was get approval from all the adjacent business owners. There was one particular business owner who spoke against it, and a lot of the other ones were strongly favoring it. So to come to a balance and see what this would actually be like, because the original permanence of this would be all summer long. It was going to be June 8th through August 31st. And staff and committee thought it was a little smarter to start with a 2-week trial period pending no complete disaster. I know there's some other discussion probably to have tonight, but we overall want the event to happen. So just giving it 2 weeks, making sure we can make some tweaks. We'll revisit the situation after that. And we can talk about how often we want it to happen at that point as well. But that was kind of what we came up with for an idea to at least try to get this event underway.
Excellent. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Mr. Bergman, please call the roll.
Erickson,
Yes.
O'Day,
Yes.
Stunek.
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Pritchett,
Yes.
Stingline.
Yes.
And Bevins.
Yes, that motion passes. Please proceed.
Item number 2 is a request to approve change order for improvement 21-07. Motion coming out of committee was to authorize the change order pricing for the City Hall parking lot an estimated amount of $27,791.83 so that Anderson Brothers may work to get the job completed. And I so move.
Second.
Motion by O'Day, second by Erickson. Any discussion? Yes, Chairman O'Day.
So this is our parking lot that's torn up right now, obviously. It was supposed to be found that there was a few inches of old pavement to basically grind up, take it away, and put the new pavement on the gravel. Well, there was no gravel, and there was 10 inches of pavement, so this is a lot different than what we had planned. So that's where the money has to be brought in to get the job done right, and it's fixed forever.
Excellent. Any further discussion? They didn't find anything good when they were digging.
I don't know, they didn't show it to us.
How about that green chair of Hulsethers? That out there at all?
Let's bury it there.
That's buried out there. Okay, hearing none, we have a motion, we have a second. Mr. Bergman, please call the roll.
Erickson,
Yes.
O'Day,
Yes.
Stunek.
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Pritchett.
Yes.
Stingline.
Yes.
And Bevins.
Yes, that motion passes. Please proceed.
Item 3 was a motion to classify the attached parcels as non-conservation so that the Crow Wing County may offer the parcels on their land sale brochures, and I so move.
Second.
Motion by O'Day, second by Pritchett. Any discussion? Mr. Sandy.
Yep, so just for the committee's sake, the actual attachment that was supposed to be in your packets up there tonight, I accidentally attached the one from the last meeting. This is the parcel that we were speaking about at committee that, the direct sale, that property owner has, approached the county on a direct sale of that lot. The weird part about this, as stated in the, well, it's not stated in the packet because it's the wrong attachment, but the parcel that a majority of the home sits on is actually City of Brainerd property. And so we don't feel the need to hold that small triangle parcel in conservation, but once that happens and we deem it non-conservation tonight, Mr. Chansky and I will work with the county to figure out what's going on, why that home is on 3/4 of city property.
There's the third one this year.
I think this explains a lot.
Don't hire the contractor.
Okay, any further discussion? Hearing none. Mr. Bergman, please call the roll.
Erickson,
Yes.
O'Day,
Yes.
Stunek.
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Pritchett.
Yes.
Stingline.
Yes.
And Bevins.
Yes, that motion passes. Please proceed.
Is this 4? Item number 4, I believe.
Yep.
coming out of committee was a motion to approve the materials testing contract with Braun Intertech in the amount of $34,040 for the improvement 19-01 Northwest 4th Street reconstruction project. I so move.
Motion by O'Day,
Second.
second by Erickson. Any discussion on the Braun Intertech bid? Yes,
This is
Chairman O'Day.
basically, it's a state aid project, and we have to, by contract, I believe, test these materials that are being used to build the road, and it's just basically a technicality, but money well spent.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Administrator Bergman, please call the roll.
Erickson,
Yes.
O'Day,
Yes.
Stunek,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Pritchett,
Yes.
Stingline,
Yes.
and Bevins.
Yes, that motion passes. Please proceed.
Item number 5 was a request to support one watershed, one plan efforts. And the motion coming out of committee was to support the attached resolution which supports the Mississippi River Brainerd Watershed 1.
Just keep going. Just plow through it.
I haven't been able to say this all day. One watershed, one plan.
I second that valiant effort.
Could you repeat that again, please?
Chairman Johnson.
I have a question, just whose plan is it, and are we, it says there's no cost associated with this request, but protecting watersheds can get very expensive. Are we letting somebody else plan our watershed and we'll be incurring costs down the road when they tell us what we need to do to protect the watershed?
If I may.
Yeah.
Yes, Mr. O'Day.
It sounds like this is already something that we've been following. We're the biggest city in the watershed, so for us to follow this is kind of leading by example. I'm sure Paul can speak to it more. He's more involved in this one.
Mr. Engineer?
So yeah, so this specific resolution is to support a grant application from Soil and Water to Bowser to create a plan. What that plan comes up with is a region-wide watershed plan, which is supported by state statute. So what we're doing here is looking at anything from MS4 cities, what our goals and priorities should be related to our permit. And so, you know, we don't know what the plan will come out with, but these are what basically all the watersheds are doing. And as the largest MS4 city in the watershed, the Brainerd watershed, staff is already a part of this, and this is just the support for their grant application to Bowser that we're going to participate in this process.
Okay.
Thank you. Exact question I asked Administrator Bergman. Where is this going to take us? All right, any further discussion? And I support the motion. Administrator Bergman, please call the roll.
Erickson,
Yes.
O'Day,
Yes.
Stunek,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Pritchett,
Yes.
Stingline,
Yes.
and Bevins.
Yes, that motion carries. Please proceed.
All right. The next item was a resolution accepting a quote for improvement 19-19 for Northwest 3rd and Jackson Street. And the motion coming out of committee was motion to adopt the attached resolution, which accepts the quotes and awards the construction contract for improvement 19-19 Northwest 3rd Street and Jackson Street reconstruction project to Anderson Brothers Construction in the amount of $143,734.24 and authorize proper signatures and contracts documents. And I so move.
Motion by O'Day,
Second.
second by Erickson. Chairman Johnson?
Is this 100% accessible to the neighboring properties? So this is just a temporary expenditure?
The answer is yes. Okay, and yes, Chairman O'Day?
I will also say that this was over 9% under the engineer's estimate, so maybe helping make up for some of that 20 grand we spent in the parking lot today.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Administrator Bergman, please call the roll.
Erickson,
Yes.
O'Day,
Yes.
Stunek,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Pritchett,
Yes.
Stingline,
Yes.
and Bevins.
Yes, that motion passes. Please proceed.
The 7th item is a motion to set the annual MS4 public hearing for May 17th, 2021 at 7:30 PM during the regular scheduled city council meeting, and I so move.
Second.
Motion by O'Day, second by Pritchett. Any further discussion?
Just
Yes, Chairman O'Day.
just something we got to do to keep our permit for our stormwater, I believe. And so it has to be done once a year.
It's kind of exciting too.
Yeah, that's what I hear.
I look forward to it.
Okay. Hearing none, Administrator Bergman, please call the roll.
Erickson.
Yes.
O'Day.
Yes.
Stunek.
Yes.
Johnson.
Yeah.
Pritchett.
Yes.
Stingline.
Yes.
And Bevins.
Yes, that motion passes. Please proceed.
The last additional item we had was a gift of an extra $200,000 from our state towards the project being handled down in, at Northwest 4th Street with the roundabout. And we were expected to receive grant money of about $800,000. And they decided to draft a new resolution so that we get $1 million. So our portion goes from $345,000 down to $145,000. And then the parking lot doesn't seem like a big deal at all. So the motion coming out of committee was to approve the adoption of the resolution. And I don't know if we have to have two motions. I think it was just one motion. So that we can move forward with the local road improvement program grant agreement. And I so move.
Motion by O'Day.
Second.
Second by Erickson. Any discussion? Just, Gabe, okay, this doesn't go through P&F? It's 200 grand. Should we turn it down?
Discuss it.
Hearing none, Administrator Bergman, call the roll.
Erickson.
Yes.
O'Day.
Yes.
Stunek.
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Pritchett.
Yes.
Stingline.
Yes.
Bevins.
Yes, that motion carries. Anything else, Chairman O'Day?
End of report.
Thank you very much. We will move on to. Holy cats, all that stuff.
Page 75.
Right on, item 8, which is unfinished business. Call for applicants. I can call for the mayor here unless he's on the phone somewhere. The mayor has terms, one term on the Cable Advisory Committee, one term on the expire 2021, one term on the Charter Commission to expire 2022, a Park Board term to expire 2024, a Rental Dwelling License Board of Appeals, 3 terms to expire 2022, the Transportation Advisory Committee, 1 term to expire 2022, and an EDA Authority term to expire 2021 and a second term to expire 2026. Myself as council president has 1 term on the Police and Fire Civil Service Commission to expire 2023, and the Water Tower Committee has 2 positions available. Next up is item number, and we'd love your applications. Next up is item 9, new business consideration of a comprehensive plan amendment. And this would be David Chansky. He's going to take us through this.
Yes, Mr. Chair. So the City Council adopted the updated comprehensive plan in October of 2019. At that time, the plan listed as the first item or task to accomplish was to revise the future land use map, or the FLU. The Planning Commission started this task in 2020, and on April 21st of 2021, they did voted unanimously after updating that map and then updating some sections in the land use chapter of the comprehensive plan to be associated with that, and then giving our neighboring municipalities and the county as well as the public an opportunity to comment. They voted unanimously on April 21st to recommend adoption of the comprehensive plan amendment. And so this amendment does need to be approved by resolution. Again, so looking at the future land use map, a little history of the future land use map, what that kind of is you take a lot of the goals and policies in the comprehensive plan and kind of really put it over the top of our city. Future land use map is a 10,000 foot view of how we would like to see our city develop into the future. And then your zoning code would be a layer underneath the future land use map. So you look at the future land use map, something is designated as low to medium density, and then there are zoning districts underneath that support that future land designation. And with that, Mr. Chair, I will take any questions that the
Any questions
council has.
for Community Development Director Chansky? Hearing none, is there a motion to adopt the attached resolution amending the City of Brainerd Comprehensive Plan?
So moved.
Motion by Pritchett, is there a second? Second by Erickson. Any discussion? Hearing none, Mr. Bergman, please call the roll.
Erickson,
Yes.
O'Day,
Yes.
Stunek,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Pritchett,
Yes.
Stingline,
Yes.
and Bevins.
Yes, that motion carries. That resolution is adopted. Item 9B is the front yard setback variance, lots 24 through 40, Block 9 in Northtown. Community Development Director Chansky, anything you want to add to what's in our packet?
No, Mr. President, again, this is Tom Dean, who is the developer and owner of 3 Deans LLC. He's looking for a setback variance from front yard setback from 30 feet to 25 feet. These lots, as you can see in your packet, they do have a significant topography change as you move from the curb back to the back of the lots. And so the goal of reducing that setback by 5 feet, it allows just a little more space to put those houses and to build them in relation to that significant topography change. There was extensive discussion with the Planning Commission on this. They did vote 5-2 to grant this requested variance. The 2 commissioners voting against it, they just felt that the requested variance was not needed on every lot, but ultimately the commission voted to grant it on every lot, more for uniformity across that whole block of lots.
Any questions of Community Development Director Chansky? Hearing none, is there a motion to uphold the Planning Commission's decision?
Move to approve, Erickson.
Motion by Tad Erickson,
Second.
second by O'Day. Any discussion? Hearing none, Minister Bergman, please call the roll.
Erickson,
Yes.
O'Day,
Yes.
Stunek,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Pritchett,
Yes.
Stingline,
Yes.
and Bevins.
Yes, that motion passes. Next up is also item 9C, preliminary plats, lots 24 through 40 and Outlot C, Northtown. Community Development Director Chansky, anything you want to add?
Mr. President, the reason for this is essentially a replat of these previously platted lots. In the original plat of Northtown, there was that Outlot C behind lots 24 through 40 of Block 9. Mr. Dean is looking to replat this to include Outlot C into lots 24 through 40, effectively eliminating the outlot. The outlot really doesn't serve any functional purpose. There is, I believe it is one storm drain that runs through it. But otherwise, it doesn't actually serve as it wasn't designed as a stormwater management piece or anything. He would like to just incorporate it into those lots. He does intend to include a conservation easement over that area that is currently Outlot C that would prevent future landowners from clear cutting back there to, again, keep those nice trees down there and keep that buffer for those neighbors on the Riverside Drive side of Outlot C. So the Planning Commission motioned to approve this preliminary plat to consolidate Outlot C into lots 24 through 40 of Block 9 with the condition that the language for the proposed conservation easement be included for review with the final plat application.
Thank you. Any questions of Mr. Chansky? No? Dave or Gabe?
No.
Okay, I'm sorry. Is there a motion to uphold the findings of the Planning Commission?
So moved.
Motion by Gabe Johnson, second by Stunek.
Second.
Any discussion?
I have one comment, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
It appears to me that we didn't need the variance for the setbacks if we approved this, because it extends the depth of the lots.
The issue there is that the difference in topography from the back of the current lots into Outlot C is an additional 20 to 30 feet.
Oh,
So it's literally just a hole.
Okay. Yeah, and I support it, I have no problems, but it's just, the math bore out without the topography information.
Thank you. Any further questions? Discussion? Yeah, Chairman O'Day.
Does this add on to their lot, but says that they can't touch any of the trees on their own lot?
Yes, that's what the easement would say, is for that section, in that area, as you can see actually, that Sean has up right now. So in the area that is currently Outlot C, a conservation easement will be filed over that section. Well, those areas will still be their legal property. It just means that they can't be going in there and clear cutting healthy trees. If they have dead trees or diseased trees, they absolutely can go in there. But any healthy trees are to be protected in that specific area of their lots.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Yeah, Tad?
I'll just add to that point, Mr. O'Day's question. That's a restriction that the developer is putting on that. And the planning commission was supporting his decision.
Thank you, Tad. Chairman Johnson?
Yeah, I just have one question, based on Mike's question. Who enforces that conservation easement? Who's out there policing the residents who own the property to make sure they're not clear cutting?
Really, and that was a discussion at the planning commission, that's really a neighbor to neighbor thing. It's really kind of neighbor policing. The city doesn't enforce those easements. So if, one neighbor starts going and clear cutting, the other neighbor can say, hey, stop that. And then if they continue, it would go through the civil court process. The city doesn't get involved in enforcing easements
Good to hear.
or that kind of easement.
Or nobody? Any further questions? Hearing none, City Administrator Bergen, please call the roll.
Erickson,
Yes.
O'Day,
Yes.
Stunek,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Pritchett,
Yes.
Stingline,
Yes.
and Bevins.
Yes, that motion passes. Item 9D is the preliminary plat for Outlot B for Brainerd Oaks. Community Development Director Chansky.
Thank you, Mr. President. Eric and Don Myra they submitted a request for preliminary plat of Outlot B. This is to replat this outlot. This one's a little more complicated into its history. This was originally planted when Brainerd Oaks back in 2003. Originally, this outlot was designed to be a community park. However, after Brainerd Oaks went belly up, I guess we'll say, bankrupt back in 2008, those properties all became tax forfeiture. At that time, the park board decided that they didn't feel the need for a park there. There were adequate other parks in the community. And then when this went for tax forfeiture, this council did vote to have it for sale as non-conservancy. Mr. and Mrs. Myra, they purchased this lot in 2017 with an intention to build their retirement home on it, and now this year are looking to build their home. However, as staff started working with the Myras in the pre-development process of that lot, that's when we realized that this is an outlot. And per state statutes, outlots cannot be developed. So for them to be able to develop this lot, it needs to be replatted as an actual lot. And so that is what this process is doing. The dimensions of the lot are not changing in any way. It is already zoned R1. It is just replatting it to be an actual lot so that they can legally build on it.
Excellent. Any questions for Community Development Director Chansky? Hearing none, is there a motion to uphold the planning? Motion by Erickson, is there a second? Second by Pritchett. Any further discussion? Yep, Chairman Johnson?
I'm going to oppose the motion. Not that I necessarily oppose the replatting. I think we should pump the brakes on it. The HRA does have a developer back in Brainerd Oaks with a pretty strict development agreement. I want to make sure that the development of the outlots isn't mentioned in that development agreement. I'd like to go over to the Parks Board and see if they've changed their mind on maybe outlot C or E or something, where we can acquire these back, because maybe since we've built 50 homes back there in the last 5 years, maybe it is time for a neighborhood park to be developed. So I think we just have some questions I would like answered before we just approve changing this outlot to be a developable lot in the middle of a subdivision that has one developer building everything else on a very tight development agreement. So I'm voting no.
Okay. Yeah, Chairman O'Day?
Where is the closest park or planned park? I can't think of a park that's very close to that neighborhood.
Maybe Bain Park
Bain, wow. Or JC's.
or
Way to
JC's.
drive.
And across the swamp. Is there anything planned in that area or designated parkland besides these little tiny outlots?
I will say that the park board president and planning commission member Kevin Yeager is here,
Yeah.
and he might be able to answer that
I
question.
see that.
Kevin Yeager.
Thank you, Kevin Yeager, 325 Bluff Avenue. Well, what I can say about this is I am the park board president, but I can say specifically we have not had dialogue on this particular piece of property. But what I can say is that we've had lengthy dialogue within the park board, that we have no ambitions of furthering expansion of our empire at this time. And I would say that generally speaking, we feel like we have plenty of work ahead of us just getting the parks that we do have up to the level of what we would like to see them. So I can't speak specifically to this piece of property, but I can say I don't know of any ambitions to put a park here.
Thank you. Okay, we have a motion. We have a second. The motion is to approve the requested preliminary plat to replat Outlot B Brainerd Oaks as presented. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Administrator Bergman, please call the roll.
Erickson,
Yes.
O'Day,
Yes.
Stunek,
Yes.
Johnson,
No.
Pritchett,
Yes.
Stingline,
Yes.
and Bevins.
Yes, that motion passes. We are on to item E, which is consideration of a resolution temporarily eliminating patio size restrictions. This is also Community Development Director Chansky. Anything you'd like to add, Mr. Chansky?
Mr. President, where this came from is, if you recall last year, the city council passed a semi-similar resolution allowing temporary extensions of premises due to COVID restrictions. Obviously, some of those restrictions in indoor dining have since been eased. However, we ended up having two applications for patios. One is for O'Neary's Irish Pub, which will come in just a few minutes. That is looking to get their patio that they built as part of the extension on premise permanent. And then for the new CC's Bar, also looking for a patio. However, as we looked at the code currently restricts patios that serve alcohol. One, they have to be conditional use, they need to require a conditional use permit. But they restrict the size of patios to 30% of the total customer floor area of the establishment. Having looked at other communities, we're the only community that seems to get this granular about patios. Pretty much every other community looks at, does it meet the state building code and requirements by other departments, such as Department of Public Safety when it comes to alcohol service. Otherwise than that, you can have your patio. And so what we looked at it as, especially in a post-COVID world, outdoor dining is only something that's is kind of here to stay. And the two conditional use permits that'll be before you next, both are requesting patios that exceed the 30% requirement in the code currently. So having reviewed this, staff drafted a resolution that was considered by the Planning Commission that it is attached. And the Planning Commission did vote unanimously to recommend adoption of this resolution. And what it does is at the end it says that the City Council would hereby temporarily lift the restrictions on the size of patios and outdoor dining areas as outlined in section 515 of the code effective May 3rd, 2021 until the updated zoning code is adopted. Again, we're looking through updating the zoning code. The Planning Commission all pretty much agreed that this was an area that definitely needed to be looked at and amended. Seemed too restrictive, and so this would just lift that restriction for until a new code can be adopted. And I'll take any questions.
Any questions for Community Development Director Chansky? Tiffany Stingline.
I was wondering, and I'm sorry I didn't get this to you sooner so you could prepare, but the history of why it is as granular as it is. It feels like there's some reason why a city council at some point in the past did that.
The temperance movement.
Okay, that could be.
That would be, I honestly have no idea. Kind of
Okay.
looked into that, and again, why the city of Brainerd got so granular when it came to the specific size of a patio, I am not sure.
Okay.
Any further questions of Mr. Chansky? Hearing none, is there a motion to adopt the attached resolution lifting the restrictions on the size of patios and outdoor dining areas as outlined in section 515 of the city code, effective May 3rd, 2021, until the updated zoning code is adopted.
Motion.
Motion by O'Day, second by Stunek. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Administrator Bergman, please call the roll.
Erickson,
Yes.
O'Day,
Yes.
Stunek,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Pritchett,
Yes.
Stingline,
Yes.
and Bevins.
Yes, that motion passes. Next
Mr.
up is
Chair?
the...
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Staff has indicated that they don't have a formal motion on item D, preliminary plat, outlot B, Brainerd Oaks. There was a vote. I didn't catch an actual motion.
I thought Tad Erickson made the motion.
Catch that?
Well, it didn't pass. Moving on.
We're gonna go back to D, the outlots B. I believe the vote, we did have, the vote was 1 against, 6 in
We
favor.
don't have the motion.
The motion,
The motion was to
Yeah, I made
deny.
the motion, but we didn't have a second.
the motion. Chad Erickson, did I recall you making the motion on item D, preliminary plat, outlot B, Brainerd Oaks?
Yes, I believe so.
And didn't Dave Pritchett second it?
Second.
Thank you.
Play the
No,
tape.
yeah, no, always, no, we can, should we revote?
No, because that was my recollection, but she hadn't heard it, so I just
Yeah.
want to make sure we're all the same.
Do we have
Oh,
instant replay?
appreciate that, thank you. Sometimes,
Administrators under the hood.
just zip right along and it's hard to keep up, I get that.
We just have so much fun, exciting things going on. Thank you, Mr.
Yeah.
Chair.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. I'd much rather clarify now than come back and have to remember anything. 5 minutes later. Item F, conditional use permit, CC's Bar Patio. Mr. Chansky.
Thank you, Mr. President. So as I mentioned, CC's Bar at 121 Washington Street Northeast, they applied for conditional use permit to construct an outdoor patio when serving alcohol accessory to a bar. The staff believes they have met all the requirements except the aforementioned size requirement, which the council has now passed a resolution not requiring. The Planning Commission considered the application and voted to recommend approval of the conditional use permit for CC's Bar at 121 Washington Street Northeast to construct an outdoor patio for serving alcohol when accessory to a bar.
Excellent. Any questions of Mr. Chansky? Hearing none. Is there a motion to approve? Motion by Pritchett. Is there a
Second.
second? Second by Stingline. Any discussion? Hearing none. Administrator Bergman, please call the roll.
Erickson,
Yes.
O'Day,
Yes.
Stunek,
Yeah.
Johnson,
Yeah.
Pritchett,
Yes.
Stingline,
Yes.
and Bevins.
Yes, that motion passes. Item G, conditional use permit, O'Neary's Irish Pub Patio.
You gonna go through the whole alphabet tonight?
We can do A, B, okay. Mr. Chansky.
Thank you, Mr. President. Again, this is very similar to CC's. O'Neary's did have a existing patio that they put up as part of the temporary extension of premise last year, which expired back in October, and then patio season ended. So they're just looking to make their patio permanent. Again, the Planning Commission considered this CUP request on April 21st and unanimously approved to recommend the conditional use permit conditional on the approval of the recommended resolution, which the council did pass.
Any questions of Mr. Chansky? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the conditional use permit for O'Neary's Irish?
So moved.
Motion by Stangline,
Second.
second by Stunek. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Administrator Bergman, please call the roll.
Erickson,
Yes.
O'Day,
Yes.
Stunek,
Yes.
Johnson,
Aye.
Pritchett,
Yes.
Stingline,
Yes.
and Bevins.
Yes, that motion carries. Next up is item H, consideration of a request to amend section 900 of the city code. Community Development Director Chansky, please lead us through this one.
Ms. Cheryl Strand of 1518 Quint Street, she submitted a text amendment request to section 900 of the city code. Her request was to amend section 900 by redefining commercial kennel as defined in the ordinance, or develop a new category of licensure for animal rescue or in-home animal rescue. The Planning Commission did consider this request during its regular meeting on April 21st, and after extensive discussion voted to unanimously to recommend to the City Council not to proceed with the recommended text amendment. During the discussion, the Planning Commission was quick to recognize that the fostering and rescuing of animals is a noble endeavor, but they felt that the ordinance as written best serves the community. They said, especially when you're taking into account the relatively high density of our neighborhoods, they felt like maintaining a limit of 4 dogs or cats was wise. They did note that commercial kennels are allowed by our ordinance in industrial zoned areas as well as rural agriculture zoned areas or accessory to an animal clinic in commercial areas. They believe that these are the best areas suited for the care of animals in excess of 4. The Planning Commission also did recognize that not proceeding with this requested amendment would not exclude people from operating an in-home rescue in a residential area as long as they do not have more than 4 animals in their home and the animals are properly registered with the city per section 900 of the city code. Ms. Peterson-Strand did also, she did make the request, which is in the packet. You saw some communication that if the council does not uphold the Planning Commission's recommendation to refund the $250 text amendment request. I'll take any questions that the council has at this time.
Any questions of Mr. Chansky? Okay. Yeah. Okay, Mr. Johnson, fire away.
I move to agree with the Planning Commission's recommendation to not proceed with the requested amendment to section 900 of the city code, and I so move.
We have a motion
Second.
by Johnson, second by Erickson. Any discussion? Any discussion? Hearing none, Mr. Bergman,
Can I
please.
speak?
No, you
Can I
cannot.
speak?
I apologize. We have a motion and a second. But we're gonna vote on this, and then there's gonna be a second motion on this, and I'll let you speak in between. The motion is to agree with the Planning Commission's recommendation to not proceed with the requested amendment to section 900 of the city code. Mr. Bergman, we have a motion, we have a second. Please call the roll.
Erickson,
Yes.
O'Day,
Yes.
Stunek,
Yes.
Johnson.
Yeah.
Pritchett,
Yes.
Stingline.
Yes.
And Bevins.
Yes, that motion passes. If you've got something to add, please. Now is a fantastic time. You have to reset your microphone.
Mr. Chair,
Yeah.
thank,
How do can you hear me?
Now we can hear you.
Okay. There's several problems with that. One, you can't exactly have an in-home rescue in an industrial area. There just aren't homes there. An in-home rescue is designed for an in-home. We've been here 3 years. The problem with Brainerd is most cities do have permits and licenses for in-home rescues. There's no possible way that you can take animals. That's how people end up adopting these animals. They don't generally go straight from the shelter to a home. They do go through homes. They have to be vetted. They have to have surgeries. They have to have behavior analysis. That's how you adopt your animals, is because they do go through in-home rescues. Brainerd is very odd because you haven't had these permits and licenses for decades. The reason that we don't have a license is because you don't offer it. It's just not there. I'm not asking you to change the ordinance. I'm asking you to add a permit to it. There's nothing wrong with having the 4 animals per home. That's a good process. But you have 13,000 people in that's what our population says. But you only have 150 animals licensed. There's a problem with this. I'm not just asking, there's a lot more that comes with my rescue. There's a lot more that I'd like to do here. You need to have animals vaccinated. You have to have animals fixed. I would like to do a whole lot more here than just the rescue. You need an in-town shelter that's doing things legally. There's just a whole lot more to this. But it starts with this. I would like to blow it up and have things done legally here, and help this town. We need to start here. David Chansky has dragged me along for a year now. We started with, he told me to apply for a CUP. Then he said, when I was in the process of doing that, then he said, no, go to the city council and ask them to change the ordinance, which is what I started doing with you guys, if you recall. Went and did that. Then he sent his henchman to give me citations. Knock, knock, here he comes. Gave me the citations. Well, I'm in court. City prosecutor supports me. Then David finally got back to me and said, well, let's apply for this. Well, it was a combo CUP, city council ordinance change. So I applied for that, sent the $250 in. City prosecutor keeps pushing forward the date of court for these citations because he supports dropping these citations and me getting this license or permit. He said, put my name on this so that if they have any questions of me, they can call me. He wants to drop these. He wants me to get this permit like other cities do. Apparently we're in a bubble here and you don't know about that. That's what you do as a city. You support your in-home rescues. So David says, oh, let's do this. So I give it to him, and what does he do the very next day? He says no. That's why I'm requesting money back, because he predetermined that it was going to be a no. He didn't even make it to the second meeting to discuss it. I'm not asking you guys for the money back. I'm asking him for my money back, because he knew what he was going to say. After a year of dragging me around, he said no. Now, what we're trying to do here is we're not going to lose this rescue and we're not going to close it down. We've successfully ran this for 3 years. I do this nationally, and I'm very successful. I'm very well known at what I do. I don't just help the animals locally. I help other rescues nationally. We're looking for property. We've already picked some out. In fact, I'm going to pay for it tomorrow. I've been here in this home 25 years. I've grown up in Brainerd. I've been away from Brainerd for 9 years out of my 62 years. This is my home. I feel like I have to run away from here because of what's going on with you guys. If you say no, I feel like I have to run away from here just to keep my business. So we're buying some property out of town just to save the rescue. This is ridiculous. We've run this rescue without any issue. We have never had a lost dog. Our vet supports us fully. Dr. Dutton right here at Brainerd Animal Hospital, and Pequot, we use Pequot too. We use Brainerd businesses where all our supplies come from, all of our food. Very expensive food, we don't give them crap. There's no reason for you to run us out of town. If I was asking for a business license, every one of you would have voted yes. Or for a bar license, a liquor license. There would have been no question. Sure, let's add another bar. But because I'm asking you for an animal rescue license, you're saying no? I don't understand this. We've run successfully with no issue. We've got privacy fence up all around. Our neighbors support us. Our mailman didn't even know when we had 10 dogs. He didn't think we had 1 dog. It was shocking, and he said that right in front of my animal control. He didn't even think we had 1 dog. And for a mailman not to know you had a dog, I think we're doing pretty good. I think you need to consider this. We don't want to have to sell our home and move, but we're willing to do it this month if you say no. And if you do say no, can you give us some time to sell our home and leave? We'd like 365 days to get everything in order. The property that we're buying actually tomorrow doesn't have anything on it. We're going to have to build from scratch at our age.
We're
Just
at
to
our
save
5
the business.
minutes. I gotta ask you to kind of wrap her up.
Okay, well that's That's what we're asking. We've been drug around by the neck for the last year from Mr. Chansky.
Okay.
We're supported by the prosecutor. Jennifer Bergman told us, don't stop your business while you're going through this. Continue. She supports us.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you.
No, I need one more thing from you. Can you just state, because you're on video, can you state your name and home address?
Yeah, Cheryl Strand, 1518 Quinn Street.
Perfect. Cheryl, thanks for coming tonight. Thanks for speaking. I'm sorry the council didn't support your viewpoint and upheld the findings of the planning and zoning. But thank you for your opinions. We sure appreciate that.
Can you give us some time to move?
Pardon me?
Can you give us some time to move?
Actually, that's not a question we can answer this evening.
Well,
All we
don't
can
want-
answer is the question on the planning commission's recommendation. And now we're gonna answer the second question on your dollars and cents request, okay? Thank you. So we'll have you mute the caller, and Cheryl Strand has requested a refund of $250 text amendment fee, request fee. And that's the second question I'd like to answer this evening. Chairman Johnson.
I have a motion.
Yes, sir.
I would move to deny the request and further direct staff to enforce section 900 of the city code effective immediately as written, and I so move.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Tad Erickson. So the motion is to deny the request to refund the $250 text amendment fee and to uphold ordinance section 900 of the city code. Any discussion? Seeing none? Seeing none? Administrator Bergman, call the roll.
Erickson,
Yes.
O'Day,
Yes.
Stunek,
Yes.
Johnson.
Yep.
Pritchett,
Yes.
Stenglen,
No.
Bevins.
Yes, that motion passes. We will move on to item I, which is a resolution supporting a second Amtrak passenger train. That is the clarified resolution that came just for you this evening. I believe Administrator Bergman is going to fill us in on the details.
I certainly can. Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the council. The mayor did get a request from Brian Nelson at All Aboard, Minnesota, to support, to pass a resolution in support of this project. The MnDOT State Rail includes a second passenger train between the Twin Cities and Chicago. It's their Empire Builder. And so the state did get a consolidated rail infrastructure and safety improvement grant of $31.8 million. And they need an additional $10 million in matching grant funds, or in matching funds, in order to be able to get that grant. And so All Aboard Minnesota is asking cities to support the $10 million match from the legislature for the CRISI grant. And attached, or before you, is the revised resolution that just filled in the blanks. That was the resolution that you had received in your packet.
Thank you. Any questions of the city administrator? This is this resolution, the paper one that came just this evening. Any questions of the city administrator on the resolution to support the funding for the proposed second passenger train frequency between the Twin Cities and Chicago? Tiffany Stenglein.
Administrator Bergman, could you just help me find the differences between what is in my hand and what is on my screen?
I certainly can. I'm going to pull it up on my screen.
Oh, the city name here, is that it?
That is. So there are a couple
Okay.
of spots. The couple of whereases after says city name here, city name if applicable, and then there was one whereas that was removed.
Structurally, it's the same, correct?
It is.
a template or boilerplate that just didn't get perfectly adapted to the city of Brainerd.
We
But the
received,
substance is still the same.
we received this request very late, before the agenda packet went out, and so we put it on there very quickly to make sure that we could meet the deadline for All Aboard Minnesota. They are going to the legislature this week. I had initially asked All Aboard Minnesota if we could have this on the May 17th agenda. They had asked if we would put it on tonight's agenda so they could include this in their ask to the Minnesota legislature.
Any further discussion? Okay. Any further questions? I apologize. Now we're looking for a motion to adopt this resolution.
I'd move to adopt the resolution as presented in paper in front of us.
Thank you,
Second.
Chairman Johnson. There's a second by Stunek. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Administrator Bergman, please call the roll.
Erickson,
No.
O'Day,
Yes.
Stunek,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Pritchett,
Yes.
Stingline,
Yes.
and Bevins.
Yes, that motion passes. Next up is the public forum. This is the time allocated for citizens to bring matters not on the agenda to the attention of the public. To the attention of the council. Time limits will be opposed. Let's see if anybody raises their hand here. It is *3 if you want to be recognized, and then when it's your turn to speak, it's *6 to unmute you. So *3 and to raise your hand and be called on, and *6 to unmute you. You see anybody up there? Is she raising her hand? No.
Denise is the owner of O'Neary's.
Yep, I know Denise. She's been here. But I see nobody. I'll ask a second time. Anybody wish to speak to the council about anything that's not on tonight's agenda? And a final call for public forum. And we will close the public forum and move to staff reports. Online, let's see. Eric Charpentier from the HRA. We'll go with you. Anything you wish to add?
Nothing tonight, thank you.
How about Tim Holmes? Anything? Fire Chief Holmes?
Nothing to add, thank you.
All right, we'll go around the room. Attorney Langle? Nope. HR? Nope. Engineer Sandy?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. So on the behalf of the Park Board, you guys all got an email inviting you to the groundbreaking for the Memorial Park project. So if you would like to attend, please respond to that email or raise your hand here, I guess, and we can properly notice that if there's a quorum of council members.
Excellent.
So that was you, 2, 3.
Oh,
So it sounds like we're all attending, so we'll have to notice that. Okay,
We should adjourn.
we can adjourn to that.
I think that's a good idea.
Okay, and then the other thing is that our name a snowplow is going very, very well. Right now, we have 263 responses. I could,
No.
so we're just gonna leave it be. I have the results in front of me, but we're waiting another couple of weeks here. So if you haven't voted yet, get out and vote.
We have about 160.
I think we should name the squad cars and the fire trucks too.
I think so too.
It's been very, very popular. So
Talk to Fort Ripley. Name a tank.
that's all I have.
Well, no, you gotta add one more every single 2 weeks, and that's how's the 4th Street project going? Everybody wants to know.
So right now, thank you,
There's
Mr.
somebody
President,
here
for bringing
from
it
the
up.
dispatch.
Right now, we are installing the underground work, so storm sewer and moving a little bit of water main around. From there, we will be moving some other private utilities or having utility companies move their stuff out of the roundabout area. And then from there, curb and gutter and that sort of thing for hopeful opening of the roundabout by the first week of June, so that the traffic north of Riverside Drive or north of the roundabout will be able to enter into town and get over into West Brainerd and use different streets to access Highway 210 instead of going all the way around. So the hope is to get the roundabout open by June 6th, or the second week of June.
Excellent. That's the part I knew people were waiting to hear. Okay, Community Development Director Chansky, anything to add?
I just got three things, Mr. President. The Planning Commission conducted a workshop on April 28th, and one of the items that they discussed were possible revisions to the city's transient food unit or food truck ordinance. As a reminder, staff brought this before the city council for some discussion on the ordinance back, I think it was last August. At that time, it was referred to the Planning Commission. The revisions that the Planning Commission is looking to look at and adopt would be changing operating times of food trucks or transient food units to be a universal 7 a.m. to 11 p.m. Allow transient food units to operate in all commercial and industrial zones except for B1 zones, so be separate from the little bubbles that we currently have now. And eliminate the requirement that transient food units must be at least 300 feet from the property line of a restaurant or bar that serves food. The Planning Commission will be holding a public hearing on these proposed revisions on their regular meeting on Wednesday, May 19 at 6 p.m. here in the council chambers. The EDA will be holding a strategic planning retreat on Tuesday, May 18th, and they also have a regular monthly meeting this Thursday here in the council chambers at 7:30 a.m. And some of you may have seen a banner that went up last week. And yes, Caribou Coffee has submitted a building permit to go into the old Tim Hortons building that is currently under review and hopefully should be issued soon.
We're getting a coffee shop in this town?
Like gas stations, one on every corner.
Stop that. Hey. Anything else, Mr. Chansky?
That's all, Mr. President.
Soon to be Chief Bestel, anything to add? From the Police Department, thank you. Park Director Kenope, Park Board?
thank you.
All right, Jennifer Bergman,
I have four things, but I'll be brief.
take your time.
Franchise agreements. I know I'm continuing to sound like a broken record, but we do have a draft from Charter. We are waiting for CTCs. So I am very hopeful that both those franchise agreements will be on your May 17th agenda. The Cable TV Advisory Committee is meeting next Tuesday. First and foremost, I'm going to make a plug. We have 2 Cable TV Advisory Committee meetings, as well as our liaison, Councilman Bevins. If there's anybody out there, anybody who is interested in being on this Cable TV Advisory Committee, I think there's going to be a lot of work that this group is going to be doing in the upcoming months. They are going to talk on the 11th about next steps. While they don't have a quorum, we're hoping that they will have a recommendation from this group. We have a quote from Charter to connect to CLC, then to Charter. But we're also looking for a quote that we can just connect right from City Hall to Charter and right from City Hall to CTC. So we'll continue to keep you updated on that. May 26th, mark your calendars. The Brainerd School District is doing their open house grand opening for the Performing Arts Center. I do know that they are planning on inviting council members, so mark your calendar for May 26th. And then last item, just to let you know that I had my performance evaluation in February, so when we're going along with the quarterly talks, I would like to do my quarterly talk at the May 17th City Council meeting. And that concludes my report, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Administrator Bergman. Next up, Mayor's report. We have nothing in writing with the mayor, is absent this evening. Next up is council committee member reports. We'll start with Tad Erickson.
Thank you. Nothing to add tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Tiffany Stangline.
Sure. Well, first of all, I want to say how much we all support all of our small businesses and our coffee shops in this town. The Sesquicentennial Committee did meet today and sat down with some maps. We had 249 lamp posts that we're putting, that we have marked off for our 250 banners. So thought that was pretty close. You can't get much closer than that. So that's it.
Thank you very much. Dave Pritchett.
I just remind everybody to make it to downtown Brainerd and any other businesses that are involved in the spring fling on Friday and Saturday. Hopefully the weather will cooperate, and if not, go anyway. You're not water soluble. Get out there.
Thank you. Is SPNW Chair O'Day?
I have nothing to add tonight, thank you.
Thank you very much. Chief Stunek?
I have nothing to add.
Chairman Johnson?
I've got a whole thing here, much to your surprise probably. BPU met. They had their audit. The link to their audit is in the consent calendar if anybody's interested in reviewing it. It was a clean audit. Finances look good. A lot of people were home last year, not so much at work. You can tell by the water and electricity charges. The PUC Commission also chose the exterior of the new the water tank building down in Kiwanis. I think Sean has a couple images. They had a few choices and they chose the one that they thought best matched that kind of stonework from the historic stuff and on the rotary entrance. Do you have the other one that's the actual selection they made? Well, it looks something like
Decided to
that.
camo it so you cannot see it.
Yeah, it's there.
It's there.
Where's Waldo kind of a thing?
Yeah. So the HRA also had their audit presented. That is all. That link is also included in the consent calendar. There was also a clean audit. As far as the HRA, I learned that recently the state launched a website, renthelpmn.org, and they have some funds to help people who are falling behind on rent. So if you know anybody behind on rent, tell them to go to renthelpmn.org, and the state of Minnesota will pay their rent and possibly their utilities dating back to last March. If you know a tenant who's having trouble collecting rents, tell them the same thing, but they'll need to work with their tenant. Their tenant needs to log in and ask for the money. And I think the money goes to the landlord, but I'm not quite clear. It might still just go to the tenant, but we'll see how it works out. Everybody log in and get your rent and mortgage paid. The EDA meets this week, so I'm looking forward to that, and we'll also be holding a strategic planning workshop on May 18th. If you have anything you want the EDA to discuss at their strategic planning workshop, get it to me or David Chansky. And of final note, I was glad to have Mary Cope here tonight. I stood next to her for 2 years on the council, and I don't do it, but I think she's right when we say the Pledge of Allegiance. It is one nation under God. Like, there shouldn't be a pause there. I really appreciate when she says the Pledge of Allegiance. It's just one nation under God. Everybody else pauses. She says it correctly. Thanks for coming, Mary. That's it.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I just have to say, I hope it was the passenger that took that picture, because the police chief is right there, and
Thank you, Mr. Pritchett. I have nothing to add. That's it. Is there a motion to adjourn?
we should adjourn to
Oh, what?
to the
To the park, which is what day?
May 11th at 3:30.
May 11th at 3:30 at the park, in Memorial Park. If you want to be part of the groundbreaking, the council will be adjourning to that. Motion by Pritchett, second by Stunek. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign.